Here we are, ma'am. Crawley House.
The good or ill. I still don't see why I couldn't just refuse it.
There's no mechanism for you to do so. You will be an Earl. You will inherit the estate. Of course, you can throw it away when you have it. That's up to you.
Can I help?
I'm Mosley, sir, your butler and valet.
Mr. Mosley, I'm
May
afraid...
I introduce ourselves? I am Mrs. Crawley, and this is my son, Mr. Matthew Crawley.
I'll just give Mr. Taylor a hand with the cases.
I can...
Thank you, Mosley.
I won't let them change me.
Why would they want to?
Mother, Lord Grantham has made the unwelcome discovery that his heir is a middle-class lawyer and the son of a middle-class doctor.
Upper middle
He
class.
wants to limit the damage by turning me into one of his own kind.
When you met him in London, you liked him.
I simply do not understand why we are rushing into this.
Matthew Crawley is my heir.
Patrick was your heir. He never lived here.
Patrick was in and out of this house since the day he was born. You saw how many of the village turned out for the service.
Nothing's settled yet.
It is settled, my dearest one, whether you like it or not.
I wouldn't say that. Not while your mother breathes air.
Oh, Ellen. This is much better than I thought it would be. You have done well.
Thank you, ma'am.
Would you like this in here, ma'am, or taken up to your room?
In here, thank you. So, are you the whole of our new household?
There's a local girl, ma'am, Beth. She's the double under-housemaid and kitchen maid. This is ridiculous.
Thank you very much, Mosley. Might we have some tea?
Very good, ma'am.
Well, he can go right now.
Why?
Because we do not need a butler or a valet, if it comes to that. We've always managed perfectly well with a cook and a maid, and they cannot expect us
What
to
they
alter
expect,
our...
Matthew, is that we won't know how to behave. So if you don't mind, I would rather not confirm their expectations.
I have to be myself, Mother. I'll be no use to anyone if I can't be myself. And before they or you get any ideas, I will choose my own wife.
What on earth do you mean?
Well, they're clearly going to push one of the daughters at me. They'll have fixed on that when they heard I was a bachelor.
Lady Mary Crawley.
Lady Mary.
Cousin Mary, please. Mamma has sent me down to welcome you and to ask you to dine with us tonight. Unless you're too tired.
We would be delighted.
Good. Come at 8. Oh, no. You're far too busy. And I wouldn't want to push in. Lynch, I think we'll go back by the South Lodge.
Very good, my lady.
Lady Mary, I hope you didn't misunderstand me. I was only joking.
Of course. And I agree. The whole thing is a complete joke.
So what do you think we'll make of them?
I shouldn't think much. She hasn't even got a lady's maid.
It's not a capital offence.
She's got a maid, her name's Ellen. She came a day early.
She's not a lady's maid. She's just a housemaid that fastens hooks and buttons when she has to. There's more to it than that, you know.
We want some very precise reporting when dinner's over.
Are we to treat him as the heir? How Yeckers like. A doctor's son from Manchester. He'll be lucky if he gets a civil word out of me.
We're all lucky if we get a civil word out of you.
Gwen, parcel for you. Came by the evening post.
Thank you, Mr. Carson.
William?
Have you seen him yet, Mr. Carson?
By them, I assume you mean the new family, in which case, no. I have that pleasure to look forward to this evening.
Daisy, did you hear me call, or have you gone selectively deaf?
No, Mrs. Patmore.
Then might I remind you we are preparing dinner for your future employer, and if it goes wrong, I'll be telling them why.
Why are they here at all when you're going to undo it?
Your father's not convinced it can be undone.
But you'll still try.
Granny and I are willing to try.
And Papa is not.
We'll bring him round, you'll see. We're trying to find a lawyer who'll take it on. So what are they like?
She's nice enough, but he's... Very full of himself. Why do you say that? Just an impression. Let's go down and you can decide for yourself.
Hello again. It's a pleasure to meet you at last, Mrs. Crawley.
We're delighted to be here. Aren't we, Matthew?
Delighted.
Welcome to Downton.
Thank you. You've been so kind.
What a reception committee.
Yes, thank you.
This is Carson. We'd all be lost without him. Mamma, may I present Matthew Crawley and Mrs. Crawley, my mother, Lady Grantham.
What should we call each other?
Well, we could always start with Mrs. Crawley and Lady Grantham.
Come into the drawing room and we can make all the proper introductions. Thank you, guys.
Do you think you'll enjoy village life? It'll be very quiet after life in the city.
Even Manchester.
I'm sure I'll find something to keep me busy.
You might like the hospital.
What sort of hospital is it? How many beds?
Well, it's rarely a hospital.
Don't let Dr. Clarkson hear you. He thinks it's second only to St. Thomas's.
It's a cottage hospital, of course, but quite well equipped.
Who pays for it?
Oh, good. Let's talk about money.
My father gave the building and an endowment to run it. In a way, he set up his own memorial.
But how splendid.
And Mr. Lloyd George's new insurance measures will help.
Please don't speak that man's name. We are about to eat.
I will hold it steady and you can help yourself, sir.
Yes, I know. Thank you.
You'll soon get used to the way things are done here.
If you mean that I'm accustomed to a very different life from this, then that is true.
What will you do with your time?
I've got a job in Ripon. I said I'll start tomorrow.
A job?
In a partnership. You might have heard of it, Harvell and Carter. They need someone who understands industrial law, I'm glad to say, although I'm afraid most of it will be wills and conveyancing.
You do know I mean to involve you in the running of the estate.
Oh, don't worry. There are plenty of hours in the day. And, of course, I'll have the weekend.
We'll discuss this later. We mustn't bore the ladies.
What is a weekend?
Why shouldn't he be a lawyer?
Gentlemen don't work silly. Not real gentlemen.
Don't listen to her, Daisy.
No, listen to me. And take those kidneys up to the servery before I knock you down and serve your brains as fritters.
Yes, Mrs. Papa. Wonder what that Mr. Mosley makes of them.
Poor old Mosley. A pity the man who's taken that job.
Then why did you apply for it?
I thought it might help me to get away from you, Mr. Bates.
I'm so interested to see the hospital.
Well, you would be, with your late husband a doctor.
Not just my husband. My father and brother, too, and I trained as a nurse during the war.
Oh, fancy.
I'd love to be involved in some way.
Well, you could always help at the Bring and Buy sale next month. That would be most appreciated.
I should say so. She's a match for the old lady. She wasn't going to give in.
What old lady are you referring to, Thomas? You cannot mean her ladyship, the Dowager Countess. Not if you wish to remain in this house.
No, Mr. Carson.
William? Are you aware the seam at your shoulder is coming apart?
I felt it go a bit earlier. I'll mend it when we turn in.
You will mend it now, and you will never again appear in public in a similar state of undress.
No, Mr. Carson.
To progress in your chosen career, William, you must remember that a good servant at all times retains a sense of pride and dignity that reflects the pride and dignity of the family he serves. And never make me remind you of it again.
I'll do it. And cheer up. We've all had a smack from Mr. Carson.
Yeah, you'll be the butler yourself one day. Then you'll do the smacking.
I could never be like him. I bet he comes from a line of butlers that goes back to the Conqueror.
He learned his business and sold you. Even Mr. Carson wasn't born standing to attention.
I hope not, for his mother's sake.
This was at the back door.
Thank you, William.
It's kind of you to take an interest.
I'm afraid it's a case of the war horse and the drowned. You know my late husband was a doctor.
I do. I'm familiar with Dr. Crawley's work on the symptoms of infection in children.
Even I studied nursing during the South African War.
Really? Very distressing. Young farmer John Drake, tenant of Lord Grantham's, came in today. It's dropsy, I'm afraid.
May I see him?
Yeah, by all means.
Is the dropsy of the liver or the heart?
Everything points to the heart. All right, Mr. Drake, you're in safe hands now.
What will happen to his wife?
She may try to keep the farm on. Grantham is not a harsh landlord, but her children are young.
What can I do to help? If I'm to live in this village, I must have an occupation. Please, let me be useful.
He chooses his clothes himself. He puts them out at night and hangs the ones he's worn. I get to take the linen down to the laundry, but that's about all.
That's all?
Well, I'll do this. He says, I'll take the other, I'll tie that. I'm just stood there like a chump, watching a man get dressed. To be honest, Mr. Bates, I don't see the point of it.
I thought you didn't like him.
Well, so what? I have plenty of friends I don't like.
Would you want Mary to marry one of them?
Why do you always have to pretend to be nicer than the rest of us?
Perhaps I am.
Then pity your wife, whose fortune must go to this odd young man who talks about weak.
What have you got there? Nothing. What kind of nothing? You haven't got an admirer. I might have. Why shouldn't I? Don't tell Mrs. Hughes. She'll bring the vicar round till you're exorcised.
How are we supposed to find husbands if we're never allowed to see any men?
Perhaps she thinks the stalk brings them. Hey, Lady Mary's in for a surprise. Thomas was in the library when old Violet came in from the garden. Seems they want to fix her up with Mr. Crawley.
Well, it makes sense. She was going to marry Mr. Patrick.
Would she have, though, when it came to it? That's the question.
Ah, there you are, dear. I was hoping you'd be home in time.
In time for what?
I've been paid the compliment of a visit.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Cousin Matthew.
Afternoon.
We were just saying how charming this room is now.
It always seemed rather dark when my mother-in-law lived here. Then she made everything rather dark.
Sir? No, thank you.
Cup of tea, sir?
It's all right. I'll help myself.
So, Moseley, how do you find being home again? Your father must be glad you're back.
He is, Your Ladyship.
Might I give you this cup? I'm afraid we must be going. Thank you.
You'll think about it.
Ah, I thought no one was here.
Can I help, Mr. Carson?
No. No, thank you, Anna.
May I?
I must compliment you, Mrs. Crawley. When you made your offer, I thought you might be a great lady nurse and faint at the sight of blood. But I see you're made of sterner stuff.
It's definitely the heart. It's almost too quiet to hear at all.
I'm afraid so.
I've been thinking about the treatments that are available. Considerable success has been achieved over the last few years by draining the pericardial sac of the excess fluid and administering adrenaline.
Mrs. Crawley, I appreciate your thoroughness.
But you're unwilling to try it?
Injection of adrenaline is a comparatively new procedure.
It's a while ago now, but I saw my husband do it. I know how.
Please, Mrs. Crawley, don't force me to be uncivil. We would be setting an impossible precedent when every villager could demand the latest fad in treatment for each new cut and graze.
I would remind you that we're not talking of a cut or a graze, but the loss of a man's life and the ruin of his family.
Of course. But I beg you to see that it is not reasonable.
I'm sorry, but I have standards.
I'm just saying something ever so odd.
And if anyone thinks I'm going to pull my forelock and curtsy to this Mr. Nobody from nowhere...
O'Brien. Were you discussing Mr. Crawley?
Yes, my lady.
Is it your place to do so?
I've got my opinions, my lady, same as anybody.
Can I help your ladyship?
This is the button we're missing from my new evening coat. I found it lying on the gravel. But I was shocked at the talk I heard as I came in. Mr. Crawley is his lordship's cousin and heir. You will, therefore, please, accord him the respect he's entitled to.
But you don't like him yourself, my lady. You never wanted him to come
You're
here.
sailing perilously close to the wind, O'Brien. If we're to be friends, you will not speak in that way again about the Crawleys or any member of Lord Grantham's family. Now I'm going up to rest. Wake me at the dressing gong.
I don't think that's fair, not here in the servants' hall.
I agree. If she was a real lady, she wouldn't have come down here. She'd have rung for me and given me the button, that's all.
This isn't her territory. We can say what we like down here.
Who says?
The law and Parliament. There is such a thing as free speech.
Not when I'm in charge. Don't push your luck, Thomas. Now, tea's over. Back to work. You'd better take this.
Friends. Who does she think she's fooling? We're not friends.
No?
No. And you're not friends with the girls neither. We're servants, you and me. And they pay us to do as we're told, that's all.
May I?
I can manage. Oh, where have I put my cufflinks?
I thought these would make a change.
My usual ones. I know I'm a disappointment to you, Moseley, but it's no good. I'll never get used to being dressed like a doll.
Only trying to help, so.
Of course. And if I've offended you, I apologise. Surely you have better things to do.
This is my job, so.
Well, it seems a very silly occupation for a grown man. Look, I'm sorry if I'm sorry.
Why are you so against him?
Aside from the fact he's planning to steal our inheritance.
Your inheritance? It makes no difference to Sybil and me. We won't inherit whatever happens.
He isn't one of us.
Cousin Freddie's studying for the bar. And so is Vivian MacDonald.
At Lincoln's Inn, not sitting at a dirty little desk in Ripon. Besides, his father was a doctor.
There's nothing wrong with doctors. We all need doctors.
We all need crossing sweepers and draymen too. It doesn't mean we have to dine with them.
Whom don't we have to dine with?
Mary doesn't care for Cousin Matthew.
Sybil, be a dear and fetch my black evening shawl. O'Brien knows which one. And Edith, can you see that the drawing room's ready? Glad to catch you alone.
You've driven the others away.
Perhaps I have. Pretty. The point is, my dear, I don't want you, any of you, to feel you have to dislike Matthew.
You dislike the idea of him.
That was before he came. Now he's here. I don't see any future in it. Not the way things are.
I don't believe a woman can be forced to give away all her money to a distant cousin of her husband's. Not in the 20th century. It's too ludicrous for words.
It's not as simple as that. The money isn't mine anymore. It forms a part of the estate.
Even so, when a judge hears...
For once in your life, will you please just listen? I believe there's an answer which would secure your future and give you a position.
You can't be serious.
Just think about it.
I don't have to think about it. Marry a man who can barely hold his knife like a gentleman.
Oh, you exaggerate.
You're American. You don't understand these things. Have you mentioned this to Granny? Did she laugh?
Why would she? It was her idea.
Have you been able to explore the village?
Indeed, I have. And I thought the hospital a great credit to your father's memory. But I'm afraid the good doctor and I did not see eye to eye.
Oh, you amaze me.
He's treating one of your tenants, John Drake, for dropsy, but seems reluctant to embrace some of the newer treatments.
Drake is a good man and far too young to die, but I suppose the doctor knows his business.
Not as well as Mrs. Crawley, apparently.
By the way, if ever you want to ride, just let Lynch know and he'll sort it out for you.
Oh, well, Cousin Matthew doesn't ride.
I ride.
And do you hunt?
No, I don't hunt.
I dare say there's not much opportunity in Manchester.
Are you a hunting family?
Families like ours are always hunting families.
Not always. Billy Skelton won't have them on his land.
But all the Skeltons are mad.
Do you hunt?
Occasionally. I suppose you're more interested in books than country sports.
I probably am. You'll tell me that's rather unhealthy.
Not unhealthy, just unusual among our kind of people.
Tommy Skelton was Billy's brother. He went off.
I'm changing round the dessert services.
I'm missing a sugar sifter. I know I'll put 3 out.
I was talking to Anna earlier.
Why? What's she been saying?
Whatever's the matter?
What did Anna say?
Only that she thinks Thomas is bullying William.
Ah. Yeah, she may have a point. I'll keep an eye out. Here it is.
I've been studying the story of Andromeda. Do you know it?
Why?
Her father was King Cepheus, whose country was being ravaged by storms. And in the end, he decided the only way to appease the gods was to sacrifice his eldest daughter to a hideous sea monster. So they chained her naked to a rock.
Really? Mary, we'll all need our smelling salts in a minute.
But the sea monster didn't get her, did he?
No. Just when it seemed he was the only solution to her father's problems, she was rescued.
By Perseus.
That's right. Perseus, son of a god. Rather more fitting, wouldn't you say?
That depends. I'd have to know more about the princess and the sea monster in question.
I wish I could dance like that.
Like what?
Don't know the grizzly bear?
The grizzly bear. As if you do.
Certainly I do. Miss O'Brien, shall we show them?
Not likely.
William, give us a tune. Come on, Daisy.
Go on.
Hands up.
Daisy! Stop that silly nonsense before you put your joints out. See to the range and go to bed.
Thank you, that was beautiful.
I'm sorry Mary was rather sharp this evening.
I doubt Cousin Mary and I are destined to be close friends. I don't blame her. Her father's home and her mother's fortune are to be passed to me. It's very harsh.
What would you say if the entail was set aside in Mary's favour?
I should try to accept it with as good a grace as I could muster.
Would you? Oh, well, good evening, David.
Good evening, my lady.
Thank you.
I'll say good night, Mr. Carson.
Look at that scratch. We'll have to get that sorted out when they're up in London.
You can hardly see it.
Well, I'll know it's there.
Are you all right now? Only you seemed a little upset earlier.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I'm just, a bit tired.
No wonder. Did the dinner go well?
Oh, well enough. Well, they won't make a match between them if that's what they're thinking.
Lady Mary doesn't like him.
And why should she like the man she's been passed over for? And why has she been? That's what I'd like to know.
It's the law.
Well, it's a wicked law.
Why does Mr. Carson let you do that?
Because my dad was a clockmaker.
Did you really ask him for the job with the Crawleys?
I'm sick of being a footman.
I'd rather be a footman than wait on someone who ought to be a footman himself.
But Mr. Carson shouldn't have told Bates. How things with Lady G?
Same as usual.
Yes, my lady, no, my lady, 3 bags full.
I'd like to give her 3 bags full, preferably on a dark night.
Will you hand in your notice?
And let her ruin me with a nasty reference? Oh, I think not.
I don't want to exaggerate. She's been very generous in many ways.
Generous? To instruct you in your own practice?
She may even have a point, but it does not seem to me realistic.
Well, nor is it. Put an end to her meddling. I am your president, and I say get rid of her.
Will that not be awkward? I gather she's planning to stay in the village for the foreseeable future.
No one can foresee the future, Doctor. Not you, not I, and certainly not Mrs. Crawley.
You do not love the place yet?
Well, obviously it's...
No, you don't love it. You see 1,000,000 bricks that may crumble, 1,000 gutters and pipes that may block and leak, and stone that will crack in the frost.
But you don't.
I see my life's work.
Was it ever in danger?
Many times. My dear papa thought the balloon would go up in the 1880s.
What saved it?
Cora.
Where's everyone?
They've gone down to the village. Some travelling salesmen set up at the pub for the afternoon.
Alone at last? We shouldn't be without both footmen. Does Mr. Carson know?
Mrs. Hughes does. She's gone with them. They won't be long.
So, you see to the girls, and you're supposed to be head housemaid. You should put in for a raise.
What do you mean, supposed to be?
I said they shouldn't have let both footmen go.
Well, you'll have to answer it. Mr. Carson wouldn't like a maid answering the front door.
Sorry to have kept you waiting, sir.
I'm here to see Lord Grantham.
Is he expecting you?
No, but he'll be very interested in what I have to tell him.
His lordship is not at home, but if you will leave your name...
Don't come all high and mighty with me. I don't know who you are, but you're certainly not the butler, so don't try and make out you are.
How do you know?
Because Charlie Carson's the butler round here.
Does your business concern him?
It might do.
Excuse me for one moment, sir. Fetch Mr. Carson as fast as you can. Use the front door. If you would like to follow me, sir.
No, no. If you think you're tucking me away somewhere, you've got another thing coming.
But you'll be more comfortable, sir.
Sorry, chump. Oh, aye. I'll not mind waiting in here.
Bates?
This gentleman is an acquaintance of Mr. Carson, my lady.
What are you doing in here?
He says he has urgent business with his lordship.
Urgent.
I've sent for Mr. Carson to come at once.
Then I'll stay with you, in case explanations are needed.
Mr. Carson! You needed at once in the library.
How long are you expecting me to wait? I'm a very busy man, you know.
If you could just be patient for a little longer, sir.
Oh. May I ask who this is and precisely what is going on?
Mr. Bates, what are you? I'm sorry, Your Lordship. Mr. Bates, you may go now.
Stay where you are. Nobody's going anywhere. Do I take it you know this man?
Don't try and deny it.
No, I won't deny it. I do know him, my lord, but not what he is doing in the library.
I tried to take him downstairs out of sight, Mr. Carson, but he wouldn't come.
Yes, thank you. That was thoughtful.
But who is he?
Will you tell him or shall I?
His name is Charles Grigg. We worked together at one time.
Oh, I'm a little more than that, aren't I, Charlie? We're like brothers, him and me.
We are not like brothers.
We were a double act on the Halls.
You were on the stage? Carson, is this true?
It is, my lord.
The Cheerful Charlies, that's what they called us. We did quite well, didn't we?
Until you couldn't keep your hands out of the till.
Would you like us to go, Mr. Carson?
No. You know it now. You might as well bear witness to my shame. He turned up in the village with no warning some days ago, on the run, asking for somewhere to hide and, of course, for money.
God in heaven.
He's wanted for some petty crime, of which he is, of course, guilty.
Here, steady on.
He threatened to expose my past, to make me a laughingstock in this house. And in my vanity and pride, I gave him what he wanted.
You did not.
I put him in an empty cottage and fed him from the kitchens. I couldn't buy food in the village. It would raise too many questions. I stole. I'm a thief. She saw it.
I'd never have said anything.
And now my disgrace is complete. My lord, you have my resignation.
Really, Carson, there's no need to be quite so melodramatic. You're not playing Sidney Carton. So why have you come here, if he has done everything you asked of him?
Because he hasn't. He wouldn't give me any money.
If I had, how could I prevent his returning to Downton once it was spent?
My dear Mr. Grigg.
Oh, it's nice to see someone round here who's got some manners.
Hold your tongue.
I'll tell you what is going to happen. When I have given you £20, you will leave Downton immediately, and we will never set eyes on you again.
I'll have to see about that.
If you return to this area, I will personally ensure your conviction for theft and blackmail.
Just a minute.
You will serve from 5 to 10 years in His Majesty's custody.
You think you're such a big man, don't you? Just because you're a lord, you think you can do what you like with me?
I think it because it is true.
You'll not always be in charge, you know. The day is coming when your lot will have to toe the line just like the rest of us.
Perhaps. But happily for Carson, that day has not come yet.
I take it my resignation has not been accepted.
My dear fellow, we all have chapters we would rather keep unpublished. To be honest, Carson, I'm rather impressed. Did you really sing and dance and everything in front of an audience?
I did.
Do you ever miss it?
Not in the least, my lord.
Poor Mr. Carson. We'll have to treat him like a god for a month to calm his nerves.
I'll be afraid this will change the way we think of him.
Then we mustn't let it.
Oh, but it will. The cheerful Charlies. For all his talk of dignity, we know his story now.
And admire him more because of it.
Maybe, but it will change the way we think of him. It always does.
I don't see why. I shouldn't care what I found out about you. Whatever it was, it wouldn't alter my opinion one bit.
But it would. It certainly would.
We're running out of options. The lawyers I write to only huff and puff. They echo Murray and say nothing can be done.
No, they don't want the bother of opposing him.
Oh, precisely.
I wish Mary wasn't so confident it could all be put right.
Meanwhile, we have to watch that dreadful woman parade around the village as if she owned it.
I think she means well.
Meaning well is not enough. Poor Dr. Clarkson. What has he done to deserve that termagant?
I think he's in for an uncomfortable afternoon.
Why?
On my way here, I saw her go into the hospital. She looked extremely determined.
Not as determined as I am.
I have the adrenaline here in my hand. Will you really deny the man his chance of life?
I just wish it was a treatment I was more familiar with.
Will that serve as your excuse when he dies?
Nurse, can you prepare Mr. Drake for his procedure, please? Well, Mrs. Crawley, I have a feeling we will sink or swim together. Mr. Drake, your heart is not functioning properly, and as a result, your pericardial sac is full of fluid. I'm proposing first to withdraw the fluid and then to inject the adrenaline to stimulate the heart and restore normal activity.
Is it dangerous, Doctor?
The draining may stop the heart, and the adrenaline may not be able to restart it.
Mrs. Drake, the choice is simple. If your husband endures this procedure, he may live. If not, he will die.
Please, no, let me pass. I must see the doctor. At once.
Your ladyship.
It's just as I thought. Dr. Clarkson, tell me you will not permit this amateur to influence your professional opinion.
Amateur?
My dear woman, do not let them bully you. They'll not disturb the peace of your husband's last hours, not if I can help it.
But that's just it, my lady. I don't want them to be his last hours. Not if there's a chance. Please, Doctor, do what you must.
Steady. Yeah, all right. Yep. Nice and steady.
As president of this hospital, I feel I must...
Valve.
Tell you, I shall bring this to the attention of the board.
You're doing very well.
Have you no pity?
Adrenaline. Quickly, quickly. His heart stopped.
Oh.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
My dear. You don't have to worry. She may be president, but I'm the patron, so you're quite safe with me. Please.
My mother was right, then. The man's life was saved.
Well, I like to think that we were both right. But I'm not sure Lady Grantham will be so easily convinced.
Then we must strengthen the argument. Cousin Isabel wants something to do. Very well. Let's make her chairman of the board. She'd like that, wouldn't she?
Certainly she would.
Then my mother will have to listen to her. She's been an absolute ruler there for long enough. It's time for some loyal opposition.
Well, if you're quite certain, Miller.
What were you going to say?
Well, at the risk of being impertinent, on your own head be it.
About your scheme for restoring the estate cottages.
You don't mind my interfering?
My dear fellow, I brought you here to interfere. In fact, why don't you stay for dinner? And we'll talk about it. We'll send down to Molesley for your clothes.
I'd better not. My mother's expecting me. But in fact, I've been meaning to speak to you about Molesley.
Oh?
Would you find me very ungrateful if I dispensed with his services?
Why? Has he displeased you in some way?
Not at all. It's simply that he's superfluous to our style of living.
Is that quite fair? To deprive a man of his livelihood when he's done nothing wrong?
Well, I wouldn't quite put it.
Your mother derived satisfaction from her work at the hospital, I think. Some sense of self-worth.
Well, certainly.
Would you really deny the same to poor old Molesley? And when you are master here, is the butler to be dismissed, or the footman? How many maids or kitchen staff will be allowed to stay, or must every one be driven out? We all have different parts to play, Matthew. And we must all be allowed to play them.
Why must we all go to the hospital? I'm afraid Papa wants to teach Granny a lesson. Poor Granny. A month ago, these people were strangers. Now she must share power with the mother, and I must marry the son.
You won't marry him, though, will you?
What, marry a sea monster?
We shouldn't laugh. That's so unkind.
But he must marry someone.
Edith, what are you thinking?
You know, I don't dislike him as much as you do.
Perhaps you don't dislike him at all.
Perhaps I don't.
Well, it's nothing to me. I've bigger fish to fry.
What fish? Are we talking about E.N.?
How do you know that? Have you been poking around in my things?
Of course not.
Come on. Who is he? It's not fair if you both know.
You won't be any the wiser, but his name is Evelyn Napier.
The Honourable Evelyn Napier, son and heir to Viscount Branksome.
Who wants an old sea monster when they can have Perseus?
If you're going to the ceremony, I thought we might walk together.
Certainly I'm going. I want to see the old bat's face when they announce it. I must try not to look too cheerful. Or shouldn't I talk like that in your presence?
Do you find me very ridiculous, Mrs. Hughes? Putting on airs and graces I've no right to.
What's brought this on?
Nothing. Except at times I wonder if I'm just a sad old fool.
Mr. Carson, you are a man of integrity and honour who raises the tone of this household by being part of it. So no more of that, please.
I wondered if you'd like to walk with me down to the...
Is Thomas going?
Well, I think everyone is.
Sorry, what were you saying?
Nothing. Doesn't matter.
Put this away before you go. And never mind you flirting.
I wasn't flirting. Not with him.
William's not a bad lad.
He's nice enough, but he ain't like Thomas.
No, he's not.
Cufflinks, sir?
Those are a dull option for such an occasion. Don't you agree?
Might I suggest the crested pair, sir? They seem more appropriate, if you don't mind me saying.
Well, they're a bit fiddly. I wonder if you could help me.
Certainly, sir.
Oh, so you got that mark out of the sleeve. How did you do it?
I tried it with this and tried it with that until it yielded.
Very well done.
Thank you, sir.
You go in, Mrs. Hughes. I want a quick word with Mr. Bates here. Mr. Bates. I must thank you, both for what you did and for keeping silent afterwards. It was kind of you. And Anna.
It was nothing, Mr. Carson.
I hope you don't judge me too harshly.
I don't judge you at all. I have no right to judge you or any man.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this happy event. The investiture of our first chairwoman, Mrs. Reginald Crawley, who has graciously agreed to share the duties of our beloved president, the Dowager Countess of Grantham. Our little hospital must surely grow and thrive with two such doughty champions, united as they are by the strongest ties of all, family and friendship.